Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unlocking a kind of hidden engineering puzzle that is literally right under our feet, or I guess, right under our tires. Every time you drive down a highway or some rural road, you're cruising over countless small structures that keep the road from just washing away. But how do the engineers decide exactly how to build them? Well, it turns out there's a very specific, mathematically rigid process behind it. So let's uncover the secrets of road construction and explore the great culvert dilemma. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the culvert dilemma, look at the government construction guidelines, factor in soil and depth, analyze the construction costs, and finally, get to the final engineering verdict. Section 1. The culvert dilemma. Water crossing under roads. Whenever you carve a new road through a landscape, you hit a basic snag, right? Water. It has to pass safely under the asphalt without just washing the whole thing away. Streams, runoff, drainage ditches, it all has to go somewhere. So engineers custom-build concrete culverts. Which brings us to the ultimate question, slab or box? Are we building a slab culvert, which is basically a concrete bridge deck resting on two vertical sidewalls, or a box culvert, which is literally an enclosed, four-sided rectangular box? Now, this might seem like a totally arbitrary choice, but as you'll see, it's actually governed by strict physical laws and uncompromising financial logic. Moving on to Section 2, Government Construction Guidelines, the official directive. To really understand how this choice gets made, we're going straight to the source, and this brilliantly illustrates exactly how highly regulated these decisions are. What we're looking at is the Master Rulebook for Local Engineers in Madhya Pradesh, sent out in March 2017 to all managing directors and chief engineers. The subject line essentially translates to regarding the construction of box culverts or slab culverts during road construction. So yeah, it's a direct intervention from the top, laying out exactly when to use which structure. Let's quickly break down the core rules from that document. The directive mandates four main things. First, engineers have to consider the bearing capacity of the soil and the depth of the foundation. Second, it explicitly states that for spans under 6 meters and depths up to 1.5 meters, a box culvert usually costs less. Third, if the soil is marshy or sandy, you gotta use a box. Hit exposed rock, go with a slab. And fourth, no guessing allowed, the final decision requires generating comparative cost estimates and analyzing real site data. Okay, so let's unpack exactly why these specific rules exist. Section 3, the soil and depth factor, physical constraints. Before an engineer even opens a spreadsheet, nature usually makes the very first call. The physical constraints of the earth dictate what kind of structure can actually survive there. Take a look at the stark contrast in Rule 3. If an engineer hits marshy or sandy soil, a box culvert is highly recommended. Why? Well, soft ground is unstable, right? A closed box structure is super rigid. It distributes the heavy weight of the road and the traffic evenly across its entire flat bottom. It's kind of like how a snowshoe keeps you from sinking into deep snow. On the flip side, if you dig down and immediately hit exposed solid rock, a slab culvert is recommended. That solid rock gives you a ready-made, immovable foundation. You basically just build the sidewalls, slap the slab on top, and you're good to go. This actually brings us to a crucial technical term mentioned in the very first point of the Hindi directive, safe bearing capacity, or SBC. To demystify that for a second, safe bearing capacity is literally just the ground's natural strength limit. It's the absolute max weight you can put on a specific patch of dirt before the ground starts yielding, sinking, or just shearing apart. And here is the magic number from those PWD guidelines, 16.5 metric tons per square meter. The directive explicitly states that if the ground's safe bearing capacity is 16.5 metric tons per square meter or less, which means we're dealing with relatively weak soil, a box culvert instantly becomes the safer, more appropriate, and remarkably, the cheaper option. Now wait a minute. How on earth can a massive full four-sided concrete box be cheaper than a simple flat slab? Let's move to Section 4, Analyzing Construction Costs, the financial proof. Okay, we've talked about the physical rules, but now it's time to pull up the actual financial receipts. This is where the math beautifully proves the engineering logic. Engineers have to put together what's called a bill of quantities. Just look at this dizzying itemized spreadsheet for a 2 by 3 by 3 meter box culvert. It gives you a real glimpse of the meticulous calculations local contractors have to run. They're calculating every single cubic meter of excavation, every drop of M15 and M25 grade concrete, every metric ton of steel reinforcement. And when they added all of this up for a standard box culvert, the total cost came to exactly 24.50 lakhs. Hold on to that number.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the financial behavior of the alternative, the slab culvert. The PWD calculated the cost of a 6-meter span slab culvert at 3 different foundation depths. At a shallow 1.1 meters deep, it's 22 lakhs. Okay, a little bit cheaper than our box. But dig down just a bit to 1.5 meters, and it bumps up to 26 lakhs. And if the soil is poor and you have to dig down to a 2.5 meter depth just to find a solid foundation, the cost absolutely skyrockets to a massive 36.06 lakhs. Why does it do that? Well, for a slab, the deeper you go, the thicker and more massive those 2 vertical abutment walls have to be just to hold back the earth and support the road. It requires exponentially more concrete and steel.
So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. This stark contrast mathematically proves Rule 1 of that government directive. If you're dealing with a deep foundation requirement of 2.5 meters, a slab culvert is going to cost the taxpayers 36.06 lakhs. But a box culvert, because it's a self-contained structural unit, it doesn't need those massive, deep earth retaining walls. It sits beautifully at just 24.50 lakhs. Just by choosing the box at that depth, the government saves over 11 lakhs on a single small water crossing. It's a total game changer. And that brings us to Section 5, the final engineering verdict, balancing logic and math. So we've seen the soil science, and we've crunched the numbers. But how do these elements actually come together to form a final public works decision out in the real world? Well, it really all comes down to this translated synthesis from the bottom of the MPPWD directive signed by the Secretary. Quote, decisions must be taken considering strata, bearing capacity, water velocity from a technical and financial perspective. End quote. It's a brilliant reminder that good engineering isn't just about building something incredibly strong. It's a perfect marriage of site reality, like what the dirt and water are actually doing, and taxpayer economics. You've got to satisfy the laws of physics, and you absolutely have to satisfy the budget. So I want to leave you with this question. Next time you're on a road trip and you drive over a little dip or a tiny bridge, will you look at it differently? Will you wonder if you're driving over a massive, deep-rooted slab anchored straight into rock, or maybe a clever, cost-saving box floating perfectly in the sandy soil below? There's a whole world of hidden logic and math lying just beneath the surface, keeping our world connected. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how the world around you is built.